Welcome to Past Light History, where the quiet moments of the past return to ease you into rest. Tonight, we journey into the tranquil world of a medieval monastery, far from the noise of kings and crusades. We will follow a single monk, the Infirmarian, through one slow, peaceful day of tending to herbs, caring for the sick, and quietly reflecting beneath candlelight. Let us take a deep breath, let go of the present, and step into the stillness of a distant, forgotten world. A world of stone corridors, warm bread, flickering lamps, and the sacred rhythm of monastic life. Chapter 1. Dawn. Awakening the monastery. In the soft grey stillness before the sun crests the horizon, the monastery rests in a peaceful hush. A single candle flickers behind a narrow window slit as Brother Anselm, the monastery's infirmarian, stirs from his slumber. The stone walls around him radiate the night's cool air, and a faint breeze from the open shutters carries the earthy scent of dew-soaked herbs. His pallet is plain, a straw mattress laid over wooden slats, with a woolen blanket tucked neatly at the corners. He sits up slowly, rubbing his eyes as the bell from the distant chapel tower rings its low resonant note to signal matins, the first of the 8 daily prayers. He bows his head briefly in silent devotion, then swings his feet over the side of the bed, toes curling instinctively against the cold stone floor. The infirmarian moves with quiet purpose, his footsteps soft against worn tiles. He dons his robe, a coarse tunic of undyed wool, cinched at the waist with a rope cord. Over it, he drapes a long scapula, the dark cloth gently brushing the tops of his sandaled feet. He lights a beeswax candle from the smoldering coals in a wall-mounted brazier, shielding the flame with a cupped hand as he exits his chamber. Outside, the cloister corridor is bathed in shadow. Arches frame the darkness like teeth of a great stone comb. The sky beyond is just beginning to shift from navy to a dusty lavender. The infirmarian makes his way past carved wooden doors and moss-edged columns toward the herb garden, located in a quiet courtyard near the southern wall. Here, the breath of morning is sharp but not unfriendly. Fog clings low among the garden beds, and each leaf is edged in silver dew. Brother Anselm kneels beside a plot of chamomile, inspecting the tender white blossoms. He fingers the leaves with reverence, checking for blight or pests, before snipping a few stems with iron shears and placing them gently into a woven basket. The basket is old, its edges softened by years of careful use. He tends to lemon balm, rosemary, yarrow, and sweet woodruff, each with its own memory, its own purpose. Some ease pain, some invite sleep, some cleanse wounds. As he works, a pair of doves coo softly in the cloister eaves. The faint scent of lavender mixes with the crisp air. Time here seems suspended. There is no hurry, no disruption, only rhythm of breath, of quiet labor, of growing light. Chapter 2. Morning chores and quiet conversation. As the sun lifts gently above the eastern treetops, light begins to filter into the quiet halls of the monastery. Pale gold streams through narrow, arched windows, tracing patterns across the stone floors and lighting up flecks of dust that drift like tiny motes in the still air. The bell of prime, the second of the canonical hours, has sounded, its soft tone calling the brothers to the next rhythm of their day. Brother Anselm walks with quiet confidence, his candle now extinguished as daylight gently overtakes shadow. He returns from the herb garden through the cloister's eastern walkway, the hem of his robe brushing fallen leaves. In his hands, the woven basket rests, now half filled with herbs wrapped in linen cloth, fresh mint rosemary, and violet petals for infusions, and thin strips of dried willow bark to ease pain. The scent of the garden still lingers on his hands, subtle and sweet. He pauses at the infirmary door, wooden, slightly bowed with age, and darkened at the handle where many hands have passed. He opens it quietly. Inside, the space is warm and simple. Sunlight spills through a small window above the hearth, glinting off the polished bronze basin that sits on a low table. Linen cloths, folded with great care, rest on shelves beside earthenware jugs of wine, vinegar, and honey. The air is tinged with the faint scent of thyme and old wood smoke. One of the elder brothers, Brother Osric, stirs on his straw mattress in the corner. Anselm steps softly, kneeling beside him with practiced ease. Osric has been recovering from a fever that visited several of the older monks in the past month. His breathing is steady but shallow, and he greets Anselm with a faint smile. "Peace to you this morning," Anselm whispers. "And to you," Osric replies, voice thin as parchment. "The sun is warm today." Anselm nods gently. "It will do us both some good." With slow, deliberate movements, Anselm unwraps a bundle of herbs. He adds a pinch of mint and rosemary to a small clay pot, pours in hot water from a copper kettle, and lets the infusion steep as he changes the elder's bandages. The water has been boiled earlier by the kitchen fire, drawn from the well by hand before first light. Its warmth rises into the quiet room as the herbal scent thickens the air. He speaks little as he works, only soft murmurs when needed. There is no rush, just care, focus, and the unspoken comfort of ritual. He moistens a cloth and wipes Osric's brow, then folds it neatly to dry. He hums softly, a tune learned from childhood, an old folk melody about wind and wheat. Osric smiles faintly again and closes his eyes. Soon another young brother enters. Brother Matteo, not more than 20 summers old, with wide eyes and careful footsteps. He carries a small wooden tray bearing bread and cheese, his posture straight with effort not to spill. Anselm nods in greeting. "For Brother Osric," Matteo says, voice barely above a breath. "Thank you, Matteo. Leave it on the table." Matteo hesitates, then sits near the window. "May I ask, how did you learn to make the lavender balm?" Anselm smiles, the corners of his eyes creasing. "From my own master, years ago. He was the infirmarian when I first came here. He taught me slowly, one herb at a time. Lavender for calm, marigold for the skin, comfrey for bones." The young monk nods solemnly, as if committing each word to memory. "Shall I show you after sext?" Anselm offers. "Yes, brother. I'd like that very much." Outside the window, birds chirp in the orchard, and the soft rustling of wind through ivy fills the silences. The peace of the place settles like dust on the shoulders of those within. There is no need for explanation, no hurried voices, no distraction. Even learning is a slow and sacred process. As the light continues to rise, Anselm prepares a poultice for another patient in the adjoining chamber. A middle-aged monk, Brother Aldred, has been suffering from aching joints. Anselm mashes ground mustard seed with a bit of warm vinegar in a mortar, grinding the mixture with the rounded end of a wooden pestle. He adds crushed marjoram, his hand steady and familiar with the rhythm. Aldred arrives, leaning on a carved walking staff. His face is lined, but his eyes are kind. Brother Anselm, he greets. The sun rises as slow as I do. Anselm chuckles softly, but rises all the same. He applies the poultice to Aldred's knees, wrapping them gently in warm cloths. They sit in companionable silence. The only sounds, the crackle of the fire and the occasional murmur of a bird from the rafters. "You've always had steady hands," Aldred says at length. "They were not always so," Anselm replies. "In my youth, I fumbled everything. I once dropped an entire flask of honey tincture into the abbot's sandals." Aldred laughs, the sound low and raspy. That explains his fondness for bees. They share a moment of mirth before the silence returns. Unforced, welcome. The infirmary feels alive with presence, but never with pressure. Time stretches, not from idleness, but from attentiveness. Each task is its own prayer. Later, Anselm steps out once more, carrying the now empty herb basket. He returns it to the apothecary's shelves beside bundles of dried flowers hanging from the ceiling. Sunlight filters through stained glass slits, painting soft patches of color on the floor. He takes a moment to pause, to breathe. Through the far window, he sees Brother Matteo sweeping the walkway beneath the cloister arches. Each stroke of the broom is deliberate, precise. The young monk looks up and smiles. Here, even a smile is slow. And the day, like the breath of an old oak, unfolds with quiet dignity. Chapter 3. Midday. Garden, herbs, and hidden reflections. As the sun reaches its highest point, light spills freely across the stone courtyards and cloister gardens. The air is warmer now, touched by the sweet perfume of flowering herbs. Bees hum lazily between lavender stalks and thyme bushes, weaving a quiet music that only attentive ears can hear. In this hour, the monastery breathes deeply, not with effort, but with peace. It is the time between labors, the space for thought and restoration. Brother Anselm walks slowly beneath the arbor that shades the garden's southern path. Overhead, grapevines twist along the trellis beams, their tender green leaves fluttering like paper in the mild breeze. He carries no tools, no basket, only a small wooden cup of cool spring water drawn earlier from the monastery's well. In this part of the day, he allows space for reflection. To his right, the herb garden stretches in tidy rows. Calendula, feverfew, valerian, and wormwood. Some plants are tall and flowering. Others nestle close to the soil in beds lined with low stone borders. On a nearby bench, a bundle of dry nettle leaves rests atop a folded cloth, their serrated edges catching the light like lace. A pair of wrens chirps quietly in a cedar tree nearby, their presence acknowledged but not disturbed. Anselm stops at a shaded bench of one stone and sits, the folds of his robe settling around him. His cup rests in his palm as he gazes across the courtyard. The sun is warm on his shoulders, but the air remains gentle. Across the way, a few of the younger brothers carry clay jugs and empty baskets back toward the kitchens. Their movements are quiet, unhurried. He takes a slow sip of the cool water, its purity refreshing in contrast to the spiced infusions and warm teas of the morning. A memory drifts in of his first summer in the monastery many years ago. He had been clumsy, too fast with the shears, too rough with the calendula blooms. His mentor had never scolded, only smiled and guided his hand more gently. Time, he had learned, is not the enemy here. It is a companion, something to walk alongside. The thoughts unfold like petals. He thinks of Brother Osric's slow recovery, of Matteo's curiosity, of the pages left blank in the infirmary's herbal ledger. There is always more to learn, more to teach, more to tend. But not everything must be done today. A soft rustling draws his attention. Near the garden wall, Brother Matteo has returned, carrying a small ceramic bowl. He approaches slowly, mindful of the peace that surrounds them. "I brought the balm, brother," he says, offering the bowl. Inside, the mixture gleams softly. Lavender and beeswax, stirred slowly over a low flame. Anselm nods. "You've made it well. Did you stir with care?" "Clockwise only," Matteo replies, a small smile touching his lips. Anselm takes the bowl, dipping a fingertip in and rubbing the balm gently between thumb and forefinger. The scent rises, floral, clean, grounding. "It is calm," Anselm says. Matteo sits beside him on the bench, their silence companionable. "Why do we always stir in one direction?" the younger monk asks after a pause. "Because it reminds us not to rush," Anselm says, "to move in one rhythm, not many. Even in the stirring, we are praying." Matteo nods, absorbing the thought. Together they sit, letting the sun trace slow paths across their faces. A pair of clouds wanders through the blue above. The basil in the nearby bed leans slightly toward the light, its leaves glossy and deep green. Further down the path, a small fountain bubbles gently in its stone basin. Anselm watches the water catch the sunlight, fracturing it into glittering shards before it falls again in a quiet stream. The cycle is endless, like the hours of prayer, like the seasons of the garden. In the corner of the garden stands a weathered statue of Saint Fiacre, patron of gardeners. Moss creeps along his robes, and ivy curls around the pedestal. In his stone hands rests a carved trowel. Anselm offers him a small nod, a silent greeting. Not all prayers are spoken aloud. The midday bells ring, 3 slow tones spaced evenly. It is time for sext, the 3rd hour of prayer, and the monastery once again moves as one. Matteo rises, smoothing his robe. He carries the balm carefully, holding it as if it was something living. "I'll place it on the shelf," he says. Anselm watches him go, then rises himself. He takes one final look across the garden. The vines, the stones, the sunlight dapple through branches, and breathes in deeply. The scent of rosemary drifts by, mixing with warm earth and the faintest trace of beeswax from his hands. Midday is a still point, a time for neither beginning nor ending, but being. And in the sacred rhythm of the monastery, being is enough. Chapter 4. Evening, candlelight and quiet study. The sun now sinks slowly behind the western hills, brushing the tops of the trees in amber light. Shadows lengthen across the monastery grounds, reaching across flagstones and slipping beneath arched corridors. The warmth of the day softens into cool air, tinged with the faint aroma of distant wood smoke. Another bell tolls, vespers, calling the brothers to the evening prayer as the daily cycle turns once again. Brother Anselm walks the cloister in quiet reflection, his fingers brushing the stone column at his side. The rhythm of the bells has settled into his bones, familiar and calming. He makes his way to the scriptorium, the quiet heart of study and record, where candlelight glows like warm honey against the cool grey stone. The scriptorium is simple, yet rich with gentle detail. A large wooden table occupies the center of the room, worn smooth by the years. Around its edges sit smaller writing desks, each one with its own candle and neatly arranged tools, quills, ink pots, parchment, and scraps of linen used for blotting. High, narrow windows let in the last of the daylight, filtered now through dust-flecked panes of glass tinted with age. Anselm steps inside and pauses, letting his eyes adjust. The scent of ink and beeswax hangs in the still air. A faint crackle rises from the hearth at the far end of the room, where a low fire keeps the chill of evening at bay. A sleepy tabby cat, curled in a ball on a woven mat, lifts its head briefly before settling again into slumber. He crosses to a familiar corner desk, his own, and sets down the small pouch of herbs he's brought. Among them, dried valerian root, crushed lavender and fine powder of white willow bark. These he will catalogue in the infirmary records before the day ends. But there is no need to rush. Lighting the candle, Anselm leans over a bound ledger. The flame casts a soft halo, illuminating the tidy script of earlier entries. The ink is brown-black, the parchment creamy with faint texture. He uncaps the inkpot, dips his quill, and writes slowly. On the eve of St. Crispin's Day, Brother Osric's fever has waned. A dose of mint and lemon balm eased his rest. Brother Aldrich responded favorably to poultice of mustard and marjoram. Lavender balm successfully prepared by novice Matteo. Each letter is a small meditation, each word a prayer of thanks. There is no noise, save for the faint scratch of quill on parchment and the occasional creak of the wooden floor beneath shifting weight. The scriptorium is a sanctuary of thought. Across the room, a young monk, Brother Lambert, copies a passage from a manuscript of herbal remedies. His brow is furrowed in concentration, tongue pressed slightly to the corner of his mouth. Occasionally, he glances toward Anselm for reassurance. Anselm nods gently. "You're steady, brother. Let the quill do the work." Lambert relaxes a little and resumes, his hand guided by repetition rather than force. From a shelf nearby, Anselm retrieves a scroll wrapped in faded linen. He unrolls it with care, revealing an illuminated diagram of a medieval garden, labeled with Latin names and drawn with loving precision. He smooths its edges and takes a moment to study it, eyes drifting over rosemary, betony, and tansy. The ink, though faded, retains a kind of magic, a connection across time to the monk who first painted it. The candle beside him gutters slightly, casting a brief dance of shadows along the stone wall. He adjusts the wick with a brass snuffer and relights the flame. Its glow returns steady and calm. Outside the scriptorium window, the sky deepens from gold to blue, and then to a velvet indigo. One star, then another, pricks through the dusk. Bats flit through the air just beyond the cloister arches, their wings nearly silent. Brother Matteo arrives, holding a stack of clean parchment. He lays them on Anselm's desk and lingers. "May I read from the garden scroll?" he asks softly. "You may," Anselm says, moving aside. Matteo reads in a whisper, tracing the drawings with his fingertip. "Hortus Simplicium, the Garden of Simples." He continues murmuring Latin names. Salvia officinalis, Mentha piperita, Achillea millefolium. And the words fill the room like a litany. Elsewhere, another brother closes a manuscript and bows his head in silent prayer. The scriptorium for a moment holds its breath, each monk suspended in peaceful work, in reverent stillness. The hour grows late. Anselm begins tidying his space. He corks the ink pot, wipes his quill, folds a cloth over the ledger, and carefully returns the scroll to its linen wrap. He leaves the candle burning a while longer, its light a small offering to the quiet. Before leaving, he steps to the window one last time. The courtyard below is empty, bathed in starlight. The hush is deep now, not merely quiet, but sacred. In the monastery, the day folds itself into memory. The work of hands, the calm of breath, the gift of presence, all recorded not just in ink, but in the rhythm of the soul, and in the gentle heart of the scriptorium. The past and present dwell together in peace. Chapter 5. Night, rest and reflection. The last light of the day has long since faded, leaving only the soft glow of lanterns and candle stubs. The night air is cool, sweet with the scent of damp stone and sleeping herbs. Across the monastery, a profound silence settles in. Unlike the quiet of earlier hours, this stillness is whole, complete. Even the birds are silent now. Brother Anselm moves slowly down the corridor with a small oil lamp in hand. The warm circle of light flickers across the sandstone walls, casting brief shadows that stretch and vanish with each step. His robes whisper against the stone floor, and his sandals fall in a rhythm steady and unhurried. This is the hour of Compline, the final prayer of the day. It is a time for rest, repentance, and peace. The chapel, humble and dark, glows with a few beeswax candles at the altar. A faint scent of frankincense lingers from the earlier service. The brothers have dispersed now, returning one by one to their cells. Anselm lingers, bowing his head before the crucifix. He utters no words aloud, only thoughts formed gently in silence. He closes his eyes and stands still for many moments, as though time itself were resting with him. Eventually, he turns and exits the chapel. The stars are bright outside the cloister arches, and a waning moon hangs low in the sky, casting a pale glow over the courtyard. The herb garden sleeps. The small fountain gurgles softly in the corner, barely audible in the night's embrace. Back in the infirmary, the fire in the hearth has dwindled to soft embers. Brother Osric sleeps soundly, his breathing even and gentle. A linen blanket rises and falls with each breath. Anselm checks his brow lightly. No fever now. He replaces the blanket and tucks it around the elder monk's shoulders with quiet reverence. From the apothecary shelf, Anselm selects a small wooden bowl filled with dried chamomile blossoms. He pours a scoop into a cloth sachet and ties it with thread, then carries it to his own chamber. The scent is comforting, faintly sweet, like hay warmed by the sun. In his room, the oil lamp is set upon a narrow wooden table. A small crucifix hangs on the wall, flanked by pressed herbs preserved on parchment. His cot is neatly made, the woolen blanket folded at the foot. On a narrow shelf, a carved wooden box holds a few precious things. A dried rose from the cloister garden, a letter from a brother long past, a tiny vial of myrrh oil. He adds the sachet to his pillow, breathing in its soothing aroma. A worn book lies beside his cot, an old herbal with notes scribbled in the margins. He reads a page or two, slowly, savoring the familiar lines. It speaks of elderflower infusions, of poppy syrup, of the gentle power of nature to soothe pain. The wind stirs softly outside, rustling ivy against the window. Somewhere in the rafters, the tabby cat stirs, then curls again into sleep. Brother Anselm closes the book. He kneels beside his cot, offering a final prayer, not of supplication, but of gratitude, for the healing of Brother Osric, for the curiosity of young Matteo, for the herbs gathered in golden light, for another day lived in service, in silence, in care. As he lies down, the cot creaks quietly beneath him. The chamber is cold, but the blanket is warm. The scent of chamomile and wood smoke fills the room. He watches the last flicker of the oil lamp before he leans forward and gently extinguishes it. The darkness that follows is not empty, but full of memory, of breath, of time unfolding gently onward. Sleep comes, not in a rush, but in a slow unfurling, like the petals of a night-blooming flower, like the turning of a vellum page, like the final exhale of the day.